Hello and welcome to Sunday Sermon on Hughes of the World. I'm Graham Hughes and this is the world. Well, a small part of it. Anyway, hope you're feeling fruity this morning. Hope you're feeling good. Hope the sun is out or it's raining, whatever you want. Whatever you're feeling like this morning. We've got Billy Kershaw in the chat. We've got Martin. We've got Elle. Who else have we got in there? We've got Diz is in the chat. Yay, Diz, how you doing? And Lost Missionary. Hey. Listen, if you want to join the chat, just hit the subscribe button. Throw in what you think. Today we're going to be talking about how the rich stay rich. This is going to be the topic today. 12 degrees it is it? 12 degrees. Look at that. 12 degrees it is. Heat wave. What heat wave? We're going to be talking. There's a lot to get through. This morning, which we'll go into this afternoon. So let's start with. We're going to talk about how the rich play the system, and then at the end, I'm going to give you loads of examples, and then at the end we're going to talk about what we can actually do about it. Because it's not enough for us to say tax the rich. Do you know what I mean? We need more than that. We need more meat on the bone than that. It's like, how do we go about taxing the rich? Because realistically, the what they called the rich, the filthy rich, have thought of very clever ways to get around the system. Okay, the system that we are all in, right, where we have to pay tax. They've found clever ways of getting around that. So what we need to do is find cleverer ways of keeping them within the system. Because every time we come up with a dumb way of getting them into the system, we're gonna run into trouble. So so we'll start off with inherited wealth, obviously, something that I'm a little bit obsessed with, because wealth is not just money, it's a head start in life. House deposits, investments, family businesses, property, introductions, foot in the door, the ability to take risks without becoming destitute. If you or I pump £50,000 into a business and it fucks up, we could end up on the streets. That's never going to happen to the mega rich. People like Richard Branson can fail time and time again as a teenager, selling records out of the back of his car at a car boot sale. Doesn't matter if his first thing fails, if his second thing fails, if his 20th thing fails. It doesn't matter, because he's never going to end up on the streets. And that's a privilege that a lot of us don't have. Simple as that. A person who inherits capital can buy assets and generate further income without first saving from wages to get that asset. Wealth can be transferred during a parent's lifetime as well as through inheritance, and large family gifts can pay for deposits on houses, which isn't available to most people getting on the property ladder. School fees to expensive private schools. We'll come to that in a moment. University costs. If you can pay off your student loan, right, within a year, you pay a lot less. If you can't pay it off and you've got to work for 50 years to pay the bastard thing off, or 30 years, whatever it is, you're going to end up paying a lot more, not just in terms of actual money, but also as a percentage of your income. Also, then you've got, business startup costs, as I mentioned. It's very easy if you're already established, because you've got an eternal pipeline of money and you've got someone who can give you money tax-free to start your business. It's a lot easier to get those startup costs going. Existing wealth therefore produces both financial returns and better access for future earnings. So these are the kids who are born 3-0 up, as James O'Brien calls them. James O'Brien's one of these kids as well, born 3-0 up, and then they go to private school. I'm not going to harp on about this enough. You know that I run the privateschoolmafia.com website. You've probably all seen it. But private schools educate a small minority of the population, but who remain hugely overrepresented at the top of British institutions. You know this. You've go to privateschoolmafia.com. There's over 1,330 names on that list now. That's an insane number of people in the public eye. Sutton Trust found that privately educated people disproportionately were represented among senior judges, diplomats, senior civil servants, newspaper commentators, the FTSE 100 chairs, the rich list. Among UK educated FTSE 100 company chairs, around 2/3 were privately educated. And this advantage isn't just simply exam results, it's alumni networks, family contacts, internships, recommendations, confidence when dealing with elite institutions that you already feel like you belong in because that's what you've been taught, friends and parents already working in law, finance, media, politics. A first job or introduction can compound into decades of higher earnings. And we know this, right? And what can we do about that? Well, we can get rid of private schools, can't we? But we'll come to what we can do about this at the end. And here's the big problem with it, right? Work is taxed harder than capital gains, right? Someone earning a very high salary in England can pay 45% income tax on the top slice of that earnings. So, higher rate taxpayer making exactly the same amount of money through capital gains only pays 24% capital gains tax. 45 versus 24. If you've got the money already, if you've inherited it, you've been given it by your dad or your rich uncle money bags, then you pay a lot less tax on it. And this distinction matters because wealthy people obtain so much more of their economic gains from shares, businesses, land, investment property, other appreciating assets. Now, PAYE, pay as you earn, it's taken from workers automatically, like before it goes into their bank account. Now, think about this for a moment, right? If you are rich, you don't have to pay tax till after the event. So you can spend a year earning interest on the thing or accruing, capital gains, whatever it is, on the thing, and then you pay tax after the event. And there are ways of getting around paying taxes. You say, well, I didn't really earn that money because I had to spend it on something else. And capital gains itself, it normally, the actual taxation on capital gains normally only arise when an owner chooses to deposit of the asset, dispose of the asset. Which is like, hang on, but when we get like a bank account, we get taxed on our savings, but that's straight up. It's not like, oh, well, it might be worth X amount in the future. No, that's real money. That's real money. And this is what fucking drives me up the wall about the way that the system is rigged against us. You have people with not just earning capital on their own assets, right? But also on shares that they own. But they say, oh, these shares, they're not worth anything until I sell them. That's what the capital gains tax thing is, right? It's worth something to the banks when they take out the loans, which I'll come to in a moment. But, the ability to decide when a taxable event occurs is incredibly valuable. I mean, even if it's just a few days later, if you're talking about vast sums of money, this is why banks take 3 days to process a fucking thing that should just come up straight away, because they want to keep that money for 3 days and they can do stuff with it for those 3 days. And then, I'll pass it on to that other bank, or I'll pay off that bill, or I'll do whatever needs to be done. And if shares bought for £1 million rise to 10 million, that owner is 9 million wealthier on paper, right? But there's no capital gains tax because unless they sell those shares, that gain is unrealized until a disposal occurs. But that's how much it's worth. That's how much money they now have. And a billionaire can therefore become hundreds of millions of pounds richer during a year without receiving hundreds of millions of pounds worth of taxable salary. Why? This is such an unfair system, and we're just getting started. And as I said, people can just borrow valuable shares can be pledged as bank as collateral because they're real. It's real money when it's a bank. When you're getting collateral against a loan, then it's real money, right? When you want to tax it, not real money. Not real money until I sell it, and then it's real money, and then you can tax it, but at a lower rate, like half the rate of what you tax other assets. What you tax wages for actually working. The owner receives a loan rather than selling the shares, or not have to sell the shares, and a loan is not income because it has to be repaid, and therefore it has no taxable. There's nothing taxable about it. So you have this money that can't be taxed in stocks and shares because it can't be taxed, it's not real. And so you say to the bank, this money that isn't real, I want to have a £500 million loan against it. And they're like, okay, here you go, £500 million. And that person doesn't have to pay any tax at all. And then any money coming in as income into their company, they can offset that to pay off the loan. The borrower can obtain spending money without triggering capital gains for a sale that they would have otherwise had to do. And this is, I mean, you want to say a loophole? This is a loop black hole. This is like the size of a fucking, this is gargantua. Do you know what I mean? Like, how is this allowed? But it is. It is. You know, Oracle founder Larry Ellison publicly disclosed that using Oracle shares as security against personal term loans. Elon Musk has done this. Famously, Trump has done it. Tesla disclosed that Elon Musk had tens of millions of Tesla shares pledged against personal indebtedness. And this is a basis of a strategy commonly known as buy, borrow, die. You buy something which accrues in value, but you don't have to pay any money while it's accruing in value, but you can use that accrued value to get out a loan, and you completely escape paying any kind of fair share of tax. And I think this is really worth pointing out, that there is this disparity, and you can see it yourself if you want to. Have a look, right? Because it gets published. Have a look at the list, the Times Rich list, right? Times Rich list. Have a look at the Times Rich list. And then compare the names on that to the names of Britain's highest taxpayers. Go on. Well, not right now. I'll just tell you. Hardly any names, especially in the top 10. Hardly any names are on both lists. It is mad. It is maddening. It's absolutely maddening. Yeah, these people are incredibly wealthy, but they pay fuck all in tax. And they get away with it, you know? And then going back to capital gains, right? Death can erase lifetime capital gain. So, right. So the UK capital gains tax does not normally treat death itself as a disposal, but inherited assets are normally given a new capital gains tax value based on their market value at death. Okay, so let's explain how this works, right? So your mummy and your daddy, they buy some shares. Your daddy buys some shares for £1 million. Peter buys some shares for £1 million. They cark it right at the grand old age of, I don't know, 27, right? And their shares were worth 20 million. The shares that they bought for 1 million are now worth 20 million when they die. There's 19 million pounds worth there of appreciation, right? That's never been subject to capital gains tax. Their heir gets those assets, gets those shares, and the capital gains tax resets. So instead of owing 19,000 worth of, 19 million, 23% of whatever it is, capital gains tax, if they sold those shares that day, at the day of their father's untimely demise, after falling from his yacht, they wouldn't pay any capital gains tax at all, because those assets are reset to their current worth, which would be 20 million. So 19 million asset appreciation, 19 million pounds tax-free has just gone to little Lord Farquaad. Do you like that? Yeah, that's what they do. So if the heir sold those assets immediately, there is little or no capital gains tax to be paid. It's just, effectively it's 20 million, because he didn't pay the 1 million in the first place. It's just 20 million tax-free. That's the system. That's how it works. It's utterly infuriating. Inheritance tax is a separate tax, but the historic capital gain itself has disappeared from the capital gains tax calculation. Also, if an outright gift can fall outside inheritance tax if the donor survives another 7 years, wealthy families can therefore begin passing assets to the next generation long before they cark it. Large estates are much more likely to employ accountants and solicitors to organise this shit years in advance. This is why when the Duke of Westminster shuffled off his mortal coil and gave all his money, to £11 billion worth, to his son, about 15 years ago this happened. £11 billion of wealth transferred from one generation to the next. Didn't pay any tax at all. Didn't pay any fucking tax. someone with a £20 million estate can plan transfers over decades, and someone whose main asset is the home they live in still, has far fewer options. Far fewer options. And then there's also, regular gifts from income. One of the most useful inheritance rules. There is a separate tax inheritance exemption for normal expenditure out of income. And there's no fixed cash ceiling on this. Gifts can be completely exempt if they form part of normal expenditure, come from income. Leave enough income for the donor's normal standard of living. So if you live in a palace, you pay less tax than you would if you earned the same. If you got the same amount of money, right? Get this: if you got the same amount of money, but you lived in a terrace house, you'll pay more tax on it than if you lived in a palace. Make that one out. And for someone who with a very high annual investment income, this can move substantial sums down through the family tree without even having to wait 7 years. Fucking crazy. And then on to Sarah's point here, like what Jeremy Clarkson did, buying farmland to avoid inheritance tax. Yep. Yeah. From April 2026, a qualifying business and agricultural property can receive 100% inheritance tax relief on the first £1.5 million. The qualifying value above that receives 50% relief. And so over that, if you somehow got 3 million from your parents, you'd have to pay 40% on everything over the $500,000 that you're allowed, right? If it includes a family home, right? If it's coming from agriculture or business, actually, there's business as well, you get a 50% tax relief. So you only pay 20%, and that is only after 2.5 million. And I know that there are some farmers that need that money to buy the tractors and do all the things that farmers need to do because it's, it costs a lot of money to farm. Yeah, I get that. But there's some people who just do it to play the system, like, as Sarah pointed out, Jeremy Clarkson. How is that fair? I'm going to keep saying this. How is this fair? Unused allowance can transfer between spouses, potentially producing £5 million of fully relieved qualifying assets for a couple before other allowances are considered. Tax on qualifying property can be spread across 10 annual interest-free installments, something that's not available to the rest of us who aren't incredibly wealthy. And this means the form in which someone holds their wealth can make an enormous difference to the tax that is eventually paid on it, if anything. Rich families use trusts, family companies, and other structures to control when their children receive their assets, who legally owns them, who receives income, how businesses remain under family control. Trusts are not automatically tax-free. Many face their own inheritance tax challenges, but their major advantage is control and long-term planning. And also, if it's over £5 million, if you've inherited, if you're a landowner and you've inherited more than 5 million, right? That 20% that you've got to pay on the, whatever you get above that, you've got 10 years to pay it off. Everyone else, next week, come on, give us the money. Give us the money, you bastards, or you go to jail. I don't care if it means selling the family home. Family office can plan tax and ownership across several generations rather than just, in one tax year like the rest of us. Having to deal with the bereavement of losing, our loved ones, and then we also have to deal with all this financial stuff, and most people just go, I'll get someone to do it for me, and you end up paying 40%. And these rich people, they don't pay fuck all. They don't pay fuck all. Being paid fuck all is my little bit of a mantra for me, so I'm going to set up a goal. If anyone wants to drop in a small taxation incentive here on the super chat thing, I mean, all my income is made very clear on here. I don't get anything on the sly. I did get some money from YouTube for a week, but then I made a joke and they didn't get it, so they've banned me for life now. This is the only place I ever make any fucking money. So yeah, you can add up how much I make at the end of each show, and then divide it, then reduce it by a third because Google takes a cut. But whatever. And then let Jezza let slip on his Amazon show that he actually buy a farm to avoid tax. Yeah, he did. Another way you can avoid tax: own the company and choose how the money reaches you, and employ receives wage when the employer pays them, and an owner-manager can often decide whether value remains inside the company as pension contributions, as salary, or as dividends, which are taxed differently, and eventually as proceeds from selling the company. Each route has different tax consequences. The advantage is not every route is tax-free, and the advantage is having choice unavailable to most employees. So you have someone like Jeff Bezos, one of the richest men in the world, who was actually getting the equivalent of American family tax credits. He was getting money off the government because he was earning so little. Just to start things off for Graham, for Dizz's Fix. Oh, thank you very much, Viper Scott. That's very kind of you. And I've got, these are top tips for you lot as well. If you want to save your money and then give me some of it, just do all this stuff that I'm saying. Private equity, there's another thing. Private equity managers have historically received large performance rewards as carried interest. This was treated favourably compared with an ordinary salary. Britain has now tightened the rules under Labour. They've carried interest moved into the income tax system from April this year. But it's a useful example of a favourable treatment that lasted for years because a lucrative payment was classified as different from wages, dividends, interest, pension contributions treated differently from income. And there are people whose full-time job is to make sure that these rich people avoid having to pay tax. Then you got government guilt. Government guilt, fucking hell. So the only way we can get rich people to pay fucking tax, right, is to turn taxation into an asset. Yeah. Take a step back on this one. I often say take a step back and have a look at the fact that we have landowners, wealthy landlords, who get someone else to pay the mortgage on their house. Do you think how mad that is? Well, it is something that's mad. If you want rich people to actually pay money to the government, they'll go, okay, then yeah, but I want something in return. Hence government debt, hence government yields. Capital gains on qualifying UK government gilts are exempt from capital gains tax. And not only do they say, I will only give the government money if I expect to get it back with some interest, but I don't want to pay tax on the fucking interest on my capital gains. And this creates a useful opportunity with low coupon gilts in the UK. A gilt is bought below its £100 redemption value, pays very little taxable interest. Government later redeems it as £100, and the increase in tax is generally exempt from capital gains. Wealthy investors who have already exhausted their ISAs and pensions can use this deliberately. I'll give the government money, but on my terms, and I want some of that money back. They privatise the tax system. They capitalise the tax system. They capitalise the water. They capitalise the energy. They capitalise social housing. And they privatised it. I will pay you tax, but I want it back. I want it back with interest, say the filthy rich. And they get it. Can we have new animations? Come, Fevi. Yes, you can. We need another 3 super chats, and then I don't have any new ones. I got 4. I mean, that's not bad, is it? I can't make a new one while I'm doing the show. It'll be distracting. I'm messing around with animations. My girlfriend watched the 2024 election night jamboree on Policy Social last night, and she was laughing her head off. Oh, brilliant. Oh, fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. I read somewhere that American business in the UK is paid through by Ireland or something like that, as if America turned Ireland into their own tax haven for their business to be set up in the UK. That happened with Google. My Google daddy pays me. This comes from Ireland. Comes to mind. I'll get to Ireland in a moment. But yeah, the example I often give is Starbucks, because they pay fuck all tax in this country, and they do it by making sure that however much money they earn, so they earn £500 million profit, the parent company, which is based in Bermuda, charges them 500 million, but whatever it is, I mean, it changes each year, for the use of the logo, for the use of the Starbucks logo. So they say, oh, well, on paper we had no money, because we had to pay this subsidiary over in Bermuda all this money, so we didn't actually make anything. But the people who work at minimum wage in their Starbucks, they have to pay tax. People who clean the toilets in Starbucks, they have to pay tax. Gillian Hope, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Received a small inheritance from my mum last week, so sharing the love. Most of her money went to carers. Thanks so much, Gillian, and I'm so sorry that you got caught in that trap with the carers trap, which is if it depending on how how you leave this life, you're either gonna rack up loads of fucking debt, or everything's gonna be paid for. And it's horrible. It's horrible. So thank you so much, Gillian. That is really, really kind of you. Thank you. The way the term taxpayer is used with such self-righteousness by people who will gleefully not pay any is pure hypocrisy. Yeah, the Taxpayers Alliance. I think that's a charity, charity for billionaires. Do you remember the lie? I was about 14 and thinking these old cunts are talking out their arse. Yes. That's generally what old people do. So anyway, government gilts. I mean, this is kind of crazy, isn't it? And demand for low coupon gilt surged during the recent bond sell-off because of this tax treatment. It's a way of paying tax, giving the government money, which is what paying tax is. You're giving the government money. Take a step back, right? You're buying government bonds, you're buying government gilts, you're giving the government money, but you expect it back with interest. You're paying tax, but you want that tax back with interest. And the rich have access to that, and you don't. I don't. Another thing you can do is change your country. Wealth and investments, income are internationally mobile in a way that most jobs are not. A wealthy person can change tax residence to jurisdictions such as Monaco, Dubai, and Switzerland. A British nurse, teacher, shop worker cannot move the economic source of their salary so easily. And tax residence determines your dividends, your investment interest, your investment gains, how your income is taxed, all that kind of stuff. Just move country. And this is why the crypto cunts are so prevalent in that, sallow-faced, sickly-looking motherfucker eugenic cunts who are running the world at the moment. I mean, Jesus, have you seen that guy who went after Jason Arday? He looks like a fucking strong blast of wind would knock him off. Actually, a soft breeze would knock him over. And he thinks he's the fucking master race, does he? Master fucking racist, more like. Look at him, little fucking sallow-skinned, fucking beady-eyed creep. And you look at someone like Elon Musk, he looks fucking ill. He looks like he's in the last throes of fucking full-blown AIDS, that motherfucker. So does that Peter Thiel, fucking Gollum creep. What about that cunt who follows Trump around? What's his name? He's like the chief of staff for Trump. They all look so ill. They all look so fucking ill. But, fucking incredibly wealthy. But apparently they're the master race. They're who we should be harvesting DNA from. Yeah, okay. Anyway, so but back onto the non-dom system, right? So we had this non-dom system for years, and famously, the Chancellor of the Exchequer's wife lived in London, not just in London, but in one of the most expensive parts of London, not just in one of the most expensive parts of London, Westminster. No, she lived on Downing Street. They lived at number 11 Downing Street. Can you believe this in your wildest dreams? The Chancellor of the motherfucking Exchequer's motherfucking wife is claiming that she doesn't live in the UK when she actually lives in number 11 Downing Street. Tax-free, by the way. Rent-free. Rent-free. Yeah. Yeah. Richest woman in Britain lives tax-free in a house in Downing Street that we pay for as taxpayers. She lives in social housing and she claims non-dom. So she pays 20 or 30 grand a year for non-dom status on her £500 million fortune. Wow. So in April last year, the old remittance basis non-dom system was abolished by the Labour government. It was replaced by foreign income and gains regime, qualifying new residents who have spent 10 years outside the UK can claim relief on foreign income and gains during the first 4 years of UK residence, and that can cover foreign dividends, foreign interest, overseas property income, foreign capital gains. It remains a major concession designed specifically to attract internationally mobile wealth to come here for a few years, not pay any tax, and then fuck off. I don't see the point myself. I think they should make people have to invest. When you come here, you have to invest X amount or you can fuck off. We're going to tax the living shit out of you. We also need an exit tax, which I'll come to in a bit. But yeah, we've got offshore companies. Offshore companies can separate where an asset is located, where the ownership lives, where a company is registered, where profits appear. Panama Papers and the Paradise Papers exposed an enormous network of offshore trusts, companies, nominee directors, holding companies, all this kind of stuff. And the structures are not automatically illegal, but they get around paying tax, don't they? And they give privacy, they give tax planning, asset protection, moving ownership through jurisdictions with favourable rules, places with no income tax, places like Dubai, places like Monaco, places like the Cayman Islands. You hear about them all the time. Offshore secrecy makes it harder for journalists, regulators, and tax authorities to establish who ultimately owns what. And I will posit that when the Panama Papers were discovered, released, whatever, in 2015 or 2016, whenever it was, I'm going to guess that the amount of media scrutiny was a lot less across the papers than it was for Jason Arday. I'll just leave that there. Also, multinationals can move profits without moving the business. Multinational groups can contain companies trading with other companies in the same group. Internal payments can include royalties, license fees, interest, management changes, intellectual property payments. This gives international property. That's a Starbucks wheeze. That one is. You want to use our mermaid? You want to use our mermaid? Well, you're gonna have to pay intellectual property on that. But this gives companies scope to allocate profits between jurisdictions. A company can sell millions of products in one country while large portions of the profit appears elsewhere for tax regions. So let's Google the double Irish Dutch sandwich. Oh no, we don't need to Google it. This is what Google does. I'm not telling you to Google as a verb. I'm using it as a noun. Google historically routed enormous royalty payments through Irish and Dutch companies towards Bermuda. The arrangement became known as a double Irish with Dutch sandwich. Governments eventually changed the laws and the structure was wound down. But the feature here was it wasn't hiding revenue. It was just using differences between national tax systems to decide where profit legally appeared. And one of the things that happened with Brexit is we were moving towards a system where all this information was going to be shared in one source in the centre of the EU, and the very rich people in Britain didn't want that. That's why the very rich people backed Brexit. The very rich people, and I don't know who else backed Brexit. If you're Alexeter, I'd love to. I don't understand. That's my problem with Alexeteers, is I just don't understand their reasoning, and I want them to break it down for me without getting angry, without calling me names, without telling me I'm a cunt. I'd like them to just break it down for me why they thought it was a good idea to impoverish the nation and set up trade barriers with our closest trading allies, but also made it a lot easier for international smuggling gangs to operate, make it much more profitable to get people to the UK, and also, make it easier for rich people to avoid paying tax. Rich people like Bono. Let's talk about Bono for a moment, because he's not even British, he's Irish, right? And Ireland had unusually generous tax exemption for qualifying artists. Unusually. So basically, if you were an artist, it didn't pay any fucking tax, right? And this was to help people who were really struggling, because a lot of artists who make their money painting pictures or streaming online and fuck all. And so to tax them is a bit mean, because it's all the money they've got, right? And then one day they might earn loads of money, and that'd be great, right? The problem was they didn't have a cap on the artist exemption. And Bono at the time was this is 25 years ago, was one of the richest people, not just in Ireland, but in the world. And don't forget, Bono in 2006, he had a stake in Facebook. He had a large stake in Facebook. He's absolutely minted. So in 2006, Ireland capped the artist exemption, right? And said, listen, Bono, you say you're an artist, but you've earned shitloads of money this year, and some of it didn't even come from your fucking shit music, and so you're gonna have to pay fucking tax. So what did Bono do? Did he say, hey, do you know what? I'm gonna knuckle down. I'm gonna fly straight, and I'm gonna pay my fair share of tax towards the Irish state. No, of course he fucking didn't. He moved part of his royalty operation to the motherfucking Netherlands, which offered a much more favourable treatment for royalty income. U2's management company openly defended this as normal tax-efficient business behaviour. That's what they said. Normal tax... This is a guy singing about peace and love in the world, saying, why don't we feed people? Every time I clap my hands, a child in Africa dies. Well, start fucking clapping then, dickhead. Do you if Bono fell off the stage? Yeah, stood too close to the edge. What's the difference between Bono and God? God doesn't walk around all day thinking that he's Bono. Anyway, cunt. Anyway, so Bono continued campaigning for government to spend more on overseas aid, while part of U2's own business had been moved to reduce exposure in Ireland, therefore giving countries' governments money to spend on international aid. So he's like, I want other people's money. More of other people's money to be spent on international aid. And that's what he campaigned for years. And people see him as a big charity campaigner. Yeah, as long as it's someone else's fucking money, eh? Hey, Paul, you twat. Fucking gobshite. Anyway, no criminality was involved in this. Little fucking, affidavit or whatever. Not affidavit. What's the word for like a little advisory? Little advisory at the end of this, okay? No criminality was involved. This is just a straightforward example of how wealthy people pay advisors to arrange the most income in the most tax-efficient jurisdiction. And by the way, Bono just doesn't be a twat when it comes to not paying his own fucking taxes. I've heard stories because I know people. I've sailed. Right? I've been, I've been here and I've been there. I've been in a few ports around the world, right? I happen to have, heard on the grapevine that some singer from Ireland, I'm not going to say who it was Bono, basically convinced at least one other major recording artist that I know of to do the same thing and not pay tax. Or pay less tax. Isn't that fucking crazy? Does that boil your piss? Because it boils my piss. Bono, supercilious fucking knobhead, turns up and says, oh, these governments around the world, drop the debt. Okay, yeah, we'll drop the debt. Who's going to pay for that? Oh, not me. I'm far too wealthy. Twat. And his music's shite. Fuck off. It's old people music. Fucking old people lift music. That's what he makes. Lift rock. Very informative, mate. Tony, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Well, someone's got to point this out. Credit to John Safran, actually, in John Safran's musical Jamboree, which screened on Australian TV many, many years ago. And he used to have a guy called the Music Mole. He was an insider in the music industry. It was the lead singer of Tism, and he used to wear a big mole on it, a mole head on his head, like a big mole mascot head, and he dished the dirt on what people are up to in the music biz, and that was one of the stories he told, and that was 20 years ago. Yeah, they moved their tax base to the Netherlands to avoid paying tax. Stop fucking clapping, then. I love that joke. Anyway. And then we've got housing. Come on, I've gone on about this enough. I mean, having to pay tax, having to pay rent, having to pay, whatever, and then, the rich have privatised everything. They've privatised paying tax, right? They've privatised the water and the air, and privatised fucking everything, right? Energy, housing. They've privatised social housing. So all these houses that were social houses got brought into the private sector. And private landlords can buy homes using a mixture of their own capital and borrowed money. So from the mid-90s, you could get buy-to-let mortgages, which I think are obscene. And that's absolutely obscene. A buy-to-let mortgage means that you are going to get someone else to pay for your mortgage. You're going to put someone else in the house and they're going to pay the mortgage. You aren't. They're going to work all day, the short time we have on this planet, this brief, brilliant spark of life that we have on this planet, and they're going to spend a huge chunk of that paying for your fucking house. And if they're receiving any kind of income, any kind of PIP or job seekers allowance or any kind of like a top up on what they earn because they don't earn enough, or they're getting some housing benefit, that goes to the landlord. Yeah, cool. Here you go. Bit of that to the landlord from the taxpayer. From the fucking taxpayer, which isn't Bono, by the way. David Falkner, thank you very much for the 38 Hong Kong dollars. I'm attempting to achieve a translucent state of nirvana, Graham, by walking several clockwise circumambulations around Javanese stupa. Global order! Yay! Thank you very much. And that also allows me to release the confetti. Gives me great pleasure to do this. Hey! Thank you, David! In Java. I'm going to get my... oh my God, this is a battered book, isn't it? Look at that. Southeast Asia on a shoestring. God, this has been around. The Yellow Bible, we called this. This has been around the block a few times. Indonesia, Java. Java. So where did I go in Java? I went to... sorry, this isn't going to be very interesting for a lot of years, but I don't care. Jakarta. Yeah, that's it. Yogyakarta. That's where I went. I went to Yogyakarta, and the other place you mentioned the other day, beginning with B, Bomborador. Jakarta. Oh, do you know what? I've got video of that from like 24 years ago. I need to dig that out. Woohoo! Okay, so housing. Let's talk about housing. Private landlords can buy houses, right? By borrowing money off a bank, which is tax free, by the way, and getting that to buy the house, and then they can, they can put tenants in that house that cover the cost of mortgages, but also maintenance, insurance, other expenses. Council tax is paid for by the tenants, not the landlords. What the fuck? Any equity that builds up remains with the landlord. The tenant gains no ownership simply from years of rent payments. The tenant gets absolutely nothing out of it. So if you're rich and you want to pay tax, you expect to get that back with interest. If you're not rich and you have to pay rent for 20 years towards someone else's mortgage, you get nothing. You get nothing towards the asset that you have paid for. Take a step back and just imagine you're trying to explain this to someone who's just landed on Earth. So how do these houses work then? Does everyone get a house? No. But some people have 17 houses. Any equity remains with the landlord, And 17% of landlords, 17% of landlords own 5 or more properties. That is mind-blowing to me. And what they've done is just like they've turning tax, just the same way they've turned tax into an asset through government guilt, they have turned social housing into an asset. They turned housing into an asset. It shouldn't be an asset. It's like privatising everyone's fucking food, and everyone else has to just rent the food. I don't know. It's as mad as that. Can you hoard this food? No, it goes off. What happens if people don't eat it? It just goes off. What happens if people don't stay in your property? Oh, it just fucking falls into rack and ruin and it's worth nothing. Rich people are not just paying for your assets. They're also helping the asset gain in value, yeah? Because they're looking after it. They're there every day like a night watchman in a fucking museum. Making sure no one breaks in, making sure that there's someone in there, keeping an eye on things, making sure that there's no mad leak from the fucking attic. Leave a property for 3 months, come back, see what it looks like. Windows will be smashed, the fucking place might be burnt down, there might be a leak from the attic, and then you're fucked, aren't you? They're there every day opening windows. Leave a property closed up for 3 months, and you come in, it's just going to be covered in fucking black mold because all the air inside is going to be as stale as fuck. Your tenants are making your asset worth more. Houses shouldn't be assets. End of. I mean, maybe a castle or an island, maybe, or a stately home, but housing, a little 2-bedroom fucking semi. No, fuck off. That should not be a fucking asset. That should be somewhere you live, and if you don't live there, don't fucking have it. Because people need these things. You know what? All things being equal, right? If there were enough to go around, enough houses to go around, I wouldn't give a fuck. If someone owned 17 fucking houses, I wouldn't care. But there aren't enough houses to go around. That's the problem. We've got a massive housing shortage in this country. But here you go. The basic wealth effect. Ownership produces wealth. Ownership produces rent. Rent helps maintain ownership, and ownership captures that future capital appreciation. Not just from the work that someone else does and then comes home with that wage and gives you half their fucking wage, but the fact that they are there in that house, maintaining it for you. Free. Not even free. They pay you for the privilege. What the fuck? Imagine you're a fucking zookeeper. Imagine a zookeeper, fucking paying for the privilege to look after the animals and have to shell out their own pocket to pay to feed them all. And the owner of the zoo just made loads of money. And you're like, why is it? How does that work? Why? They're doing all the work here. They're doing all the fucking hard yakka. And then the zoo owner goes, oh, well, I put a coat of paint on the wood chip. No, you didn't, mate. You got your daughter's boyfriend to come in with a fucking, a roller and do it for you one afternoon in return for packet of fucking prawn cocktail fucking Smith's crisps. You know, like, what the fuck? Shouldn't be an asset. End of. End of that chat with that. Housing shouldn't be an asset until everyone's got a fucking house. It's like food, you know? You can have some food once everyone else has, you know, got theirs. You know, you can go back for seconds once everyone else has been fed. Okay. What else are you saying? Jacqueline, no, the flat belongs to the mortgage company and they want me out. I'm still here because of delays to the court system. They can't get the eviction notice. I'm glad they can't get the eviction notice, Sarah, and it's really shit the situation that you've been put in. Sarah says, social object, my landlord didn't pay his buy-to-let mortgage and now I'm in waiting for the eviction notice despite 11 years of rent. It's monstrous. Sarah, your landlord should be in fucking jail. Should be in fucking jail for that. That's it. That was the Green policy, wasn't it? That house should be taken off your landlord and turned into social housing, and you should be able to continue living there. They had a chance. They were giving everything. This is what pisses me off about these fuckers. Right, to do shit like this. They were giving everything, and they wanted more. It wasn't enough. It's never enough. Don't mention your island, Graham. Well, you know, look. For my island, I think my island is a really good example of how I think things should be done. I pay Ishmael and his family to live on the island. They live there, you know, and I pay them. They don't pay rent to me. I pay them because if they're not there, then someone else will take over my island. All my stuff will get robbed. Again. All right? It's worth it for me to pay someone to live in my property. And in the same, it's worth it to anyone who owns property anywhere in the world to have people living in there. They're not. So fucking pay them. Stop this rent thing. You should be these people are looking after your asset. And it's not good enough to let them live there for free. No, you should fucking pay them. Because part of their job that they do each day, and I've spoken before about the ridiculous notion of jobs that we have. So what's a job? Is washing the dishes a job? Now, what about washing the dishes in someone else's house? Oh, that's a job. Is cleaning your own toilet a job? Now, what about cleaning someone else's toilet? Oh, that's a job. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's the same. If you were paid to go and look after a zoo, look after a museum, look after a stately home or whatever, and that was your job, working for the National Trust or, you know, English Heritage, that's your job. You're looking after the place. You're a custodian. You know? They pay you. You're a security guard in a warehouse. You're being paid to be there so no one robs the fucking warehouse. The idea that those security guards should pay for the privilege of looking after someone else's stuff is monstrous. Like, you go, hang on, what? So why is it any different with housing? Come on, explain to me. I know it's going to be difficult in 260 characters, but come on, give it a go. By the way, I keep forgetting to mention this, but if you give a super chat, you get to write more. If there's anyone out there who wants to write a fucking essay in here, and obviously if there's a super chat, I'm definitely going to read it out, even if it's insulting me. But yeah, if people want to give money, you can write more. It allows you to write more things. Trust me, Graham, there's plenty of bad tenants who are slowly ruining the houses they live in. I'm not complaining because that's where my work comes from. It says Martin. Yeah, good. I'm glad there's bad tenants. Fuck them. I'm sorry, but I've got no sympathy for landlords who have bought houses to make money. Do you know what happens if you do that? You get bad tenants. Oh dear, what a shame. How sad. Don't call him Ishmael. There's no S. There's no H. We don't need an H because it's Ishmael. You don't need an H. But yeah, is there a large white iguana involved? Oh, that fucking white iguana! It fucking bit me leg off. One day I'll get my revenge. You can get a Scottish castle for about 1.5 million, but you need about 500,000 a year for upkeep. And currently 0.0001% towards my goal. Well, yeah, I mean, I've got to pay a lot for upkeep for the island. I mean, it'll be worth it when I sell it, but it's going to take years. It'll take years to get the title for it. I mean, proper years. I think we've been doing it for 3 years now. It's probably going to be another 3, 4, maybe 5 years before it's in a place where the government say, oh, okay, you've got the title for the island now, and then I can sell it and buy somewhere in the UK and start making some movies. That's what I want to do. Everyone's like, oh, you want to put it into a pension? If you get that windfall, why don't you put it in a pension? Oh, fuck putting it in a pension, mate. I'm going to fucking spend it. I'm going to spend it on making really cool films. That's my plan. Anyway, so we've got, the Can we talk about water for a moment? Private ownership is something that no one can refuse to buy. How mad is this? Water companies in England and Wales operate regional monopolies. Customers cannot simply choose another network because it's like the price of the service or the shit in the rivers. Since privatisation, estimates of dividends paid by water companies range from roughly 53 billion to 78 billion pounds dividends since privatisation. The companies have simultaneously accumulated tens of billions of pounds worth of debt. Revenue ultimately comes overwhelmingly from households and businesses paying water bills, but not all businesses. So there's a famous case where Coca-Cola had done a deal with the fucking water company in Northumberland or wherever and said, listen, we don't have to pay the full amount for this. So they ended up paying £6,000. 6,000. That's it. £6,000. You get that on a credit card, right? So as much as you can get on a credit card, if you go to a bank and have a £6,000 limit on my credit card, yeah, you can have that, right? £6,000. That's what they paid to the water company, right? And they generated out of the water that they made in this particular bottling company, bottling plant, £20 million. £20 million out of £6,000 worth of water. You know, water provides guaranteed demand, monopoly infrastructure, private shareholder returns. Like the energy company, you know, and this is several layers: generators, transmission networks, local distribution networks, retailers, private companies, and returns at every fucking stage. Transmission and redistribution networks and natural monopolies, whose returns are regulated. The national grid got sold off a few years ago, and a consortium from Qatar and China bought it. It's been sold again since then. Qatar and China owned our national grid for a bit, if you can believe that. Because it happened. Households cannot realistically opt out of heating and electricity. The economic distinction from ordinary consumer spending is that demand is substantially unavoidable. A bit like housing. You need a house, you need energy, you need water. Don't fucking privatise them. Someone doesn't need to make money out of that. And then we come to care. The care system in this country is fucked. There are private care companies who are paying their employees half of fuck all. Their employees are coming from Nigeria and Southern Asia and they're South Asia. They're making out like fucking bandits. The people who own it, the people who work there are earning minimum fucking wage on very fixed contracts. Who, you know, and they're charging the houses that they go to one-to-one £2,000 per house. So let me get this straight. So you've got a nurse. You got a couple of nurses, right? Care workers, right? And you're paying them £12 an hour, and they work for 8 hours a day. They don't get any money back for the petrol that they use going from house to house. Did you know that? No, they don't. And so they got to pay for the petrol out their own pocket and any kind of parking tickets that they get for having to park in weird places because they need to get to their clients. And then they go in and they clean up the people that they're looking after, and they get and for that the company that runs that service is earning £2,000 a week from each and every house it goes to. Now, there are some people who are on a death note, who are in palliative care, like my father at the moment. He's on palliative care, so we don't have to pay it, right? But someone does. So it's going to be the taxpayer. You, the taxpayer, I, the taxpayer, are paying that £2,000 a week for the carers to come and look after me dad. And it's not like this. I mean, being carers is not an easy job by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not something that you have to invest a fuckload of money into training to suss out how to do it, right? It's not like becoming a world-class geologist or becoming, working as a brain surgeon or a rocket scientist, whatever, you know? And these companies are paying their employees fuck all. And for every house they go to, £2,000 a week. It's a license to print money. And how is this privatised? How are they making money out of this? And then the people who own these private care companies are making it in, and they're using these tax loopholes, which I've been talking about, to get away with it. Council tax. Let's talk about council tax. Okay. English council tax still based on 1991 property values. 1991! Do you know how long ago 1991 was? There was no internet. No one had a mobile phone except yuppies who had a huge brick that they put at the side of their head to show off. Didn't work most of the time. 1991. Okay, Cobain was still alive. 1990. Freddie Mercury was still alive in 1991. Do you remember 1991? It's a very, very, very long time ago. It was 35 years ago. So over a third of a century ago. Highest band H is only 3 times what you have to pay for band A. Band H homes were already worth at least 8 times band A homes in 1991, often far more today. And the IFS has described council tax as a highly regressive tax relative to a property value. A house becoming worth 5 million, 10 million, or 20 million does not create a proportional annual property tax bill, and this leaves large properties of large amounts of property wealth relatively lightly taxed on an annual basis, and it's why a family living in a terrace street round here in Durham end up paying more in council tax than the residents of Buckingham fucking Palace, because each council sets its own amount of tax, and if you get all your money for that you need out of the embassies that are based in your particular bit of the city, like Westminster Council, you don't really need to charge people that much. Kensington don't need to charge people that much, so they don't. So people have £20 million mansions and they pay £1,000 council tax on it. How is that fair? And if you say this to any of these fuckers, these privately educated toff balls, what do they say? Yeah, it's the politics of envy. No, it's the politics of fairness, you fucknut. It's the politics of justice. It's the politics of having a system that works for everyone, not just the few. And yeah, I want to go back to the rich list. I mentioned this earlier. So the 2026 rich list put the combined wealth of Britain's richest 350 individuals. It used to be I think it used to be 1,000, and then they brought it down to 500. Then they brought it down because they realised that if you add it all together, it's an obscene amount of money, and so they keep reducing it. But anyway, so the combined wealth of Britain's richest 350 individuals, around £784 billion. Ladies and gentlemen, that is over £750 billion. Okay? The 2026 tax list estimated the top 100 taxpayers, and as I've mentioned, the taxpayers list, have a look at that, have a look at the rich list. There's not a lot of overlap. The top 100 taxpayers contributed around 5.8 billion during the year. So we have the wealth, 780 billion. The tax paid on that wealth, less than 6 billion. Now, I don't want to, pull rank on you when it comes to mathematics. I'm sure some of you are better at mathematics than I am, but to me that seems pretty evident that is less than 1% of the wealth. Less than 1% of the wealth. The politics of envy. It's the politics of envy, that is. That's just the politics of envy. Tax is charged when income arrives, when profits arise, when assets are sold, when transactions occur. A billionaire's fortune can therefore rise enormously without generating any tax comparable to a worker earning the same amount as a salary. And this just shows how much the fucking wealthy get away with it. So combine the top 350 wealthiest individuals pay less than 1% of their wealth in tax per year. Less than 1%. Okay, right. And then we've got tax advice, expensive tax advice. That's a wealth advantage, isn't it? Very wealthy people routinely employ tax barristers, accountants, wealth managers, private banks, Coots Bank. Let's get a Coots Bank account, to save up for my swans and oysters that I like to eat. And the big fat Havana cigars. Family officers, trust specialists, and they identify the loopholes, the exemptions, the timing opportunities, the residency rules, the structures, the reliefs, the interactions between different countries, tax laws. Tax complexity therefore creates an asymmetry here where ordinary taxpayers like you and I, we try to comply, whereas an ordinary wealthy taxpayer can pay professionals to optimize. And the advice can cost tens or hundreds of thousands of pounds and still be worthwhile if millions are saved. And then we've got political donations give wealth to another route, protecting wealth as well. You buy up your politicians, donations, campaign funding, think tanks, lobbying, personal gifts, media ownership. There is no cap on this. Christopher Harborne recently gave Nigel Farage £5 million personally before Farage entered Parliament. The problem wasn't that he gave him the £5 million, and though that's distasteful, that wasn't the problem. The problem was that Farage didn't disclose it. Farage later described it as a reward for Brexit. Brexit which made everyone but him poorer. Him and his mates, him and his posh mates got poorer because of Brexit. If you're British, had your family ripped apart. Your dad had to go back to Germany, or your mum had to go back to Spain. So you see them now on Zoom now and again. Fell out with people that you've loved for all your life, and then they said, "Oh no, we should leave the EU because of reasons." You fall out with them. I could keep saying Nigel Farage caused more splits in this country, caused more division in this country, caused more anger, hatred, spite towards fellow British people than anyone since Oliver Cromwell, since the English Civil War. And you know what Cromwell did to Ireland, eh? Yeah. Anyway, the Harborne has been a major donor for Farage's political organisations, and there's no need for explicitly written instruction for a donor for financial dependence to matter politically, and a billionaire can provide a politician or a movement like J.K. Rowling with the transphobe movement in a way that no ordinary supporter could remotely match, and it's a powerful argument. You don't have to pay anything. If you're rich enough, you turn up with your big fat cigar and you say, "Oh, Andy, old chap, I'll tell you what, you do as I fucking say, or I will fund your opponent." There you go. You keep the fucking money then, can't you? And such is the power of these motherfuckers over our democracy, over every fucking part of our lives. And then we've got the tax avoidance it wasn't the sole cause of Brexit, but it was one identifiable interest within a much larger coalition. Several prominent Brexiters who all went to private school, by the way. Every single one of them went to private school. All the big hitters when it comes to Brexit, there's about 24 of them, right? They all went, 100% went to private school. It's mind-blowing. It's absolutely fucking mind-blowing. And then we've got several prominent Brexit financiers and supporters had offshore interests, businesses in low-tax jurisdictions, international financial interests. Aaron Banks donated millions. Aaron Banks, privately educated, donated millions to leave and had interests in the Isle of Man. The Paradise Papers reporting documented offshore interests amongst a number of leading supporters, the number being 100%, and some leading British Brexit advocates promoted the possibility of Britain becoming a low-tax, lightly regulated competitor to the EU after our departure. And Brexit removed the UK, not just from the Dublin Agreement, which meant we could send people back over the channel, not just from Eurodac, which meant that we had access to people's fucking fingerprints and biometric data, so that if people came over, we knew where they'd already asked for asylum. You come off in a small boat, so you could say, "Yeah, no, you've already asked for asylum in another country. We're going to send you back there." We used to be able to do that. We don't have access to that anymore because of Brexit. I can sit here for half an hour and I can just spit out all the shit that Brexit has done to this country. And not one good thing. Not one. If it was the death of Nigel Farage's political career, then I'll say, yeah, okay, I'll give it that. But it wasn't. And after we voted to Brexit, we made Boris Johnson the Prime Minister. Brexiteer-in-chief for the Tory party. We made him the fucking Prime Minister, for fuck's sake. Anyway, so yeah, Britain removed the UK from automatic participation in future EU tax coordination rules, corporate transparency rules, anti-avoidance legislation, and information sharing measures. So we don't share information about criminals, we don't share information about asylum seekers, and we don't share information about taxation like we used to. And that autonomy was economically attractive to parts of the Brexit coalition who favoured lower corporate taxes and lighter regulation and aggressive in international competition for investment. even though British, investments, inward investment into Britain went off a cliff after 2016. And here's the thing, tax avoidance is legal. Tax evasion, that's the one. Oh, you're evading tax, we're going to have to put you in jail. But tax avoidance? No, it's legal. It's rewarded. It's a bad thing. It's a terrible, awful, awful thing to do. Like, getting a bag of kittens and throwing them in the canal. It's an awful thing to do. Morally, it is absolutely repugnant. But unlike throwing a bag of kittens in the canal, you're actually rewarded for it in our society. You're rewarded for being selfish and greedy. The greedier you are, the more you're rewarded. The greedier you are, the more you don't want to share your stuff, the more money you earn. The more money you take home, the more money you can pass on to your grandkids. Avoidance is arranging your affairs to reduce tax while remaining within the law. Evasion is illegally concealing or misrepresenting taxable income or assets. And the sophisticated wealthy strategies that I'm talking about are mostly tax in all these, in everything I've been saying in the show so far. This is all legal avoidance. Okay, this isn't hiding cash in suitcases. All right, this is the way that they do it. I've listed over 25 ways that the rich stay rich. That's phenomenal. In just over an hour. Well, go me. Yeah, I think that's worth £2, don't you? Anyway, but HMRC estimates the total UK tax gap at around £59 billion for 2024-25. HMRC estimates that wealthy individuals account for a minority of that gap, with a wealthy self-tax assessment gap of roughly 3.4 billion. So legal avoidance is only a small component of HMRC's measured tax gap, because of the many advantages described, are lawful, that I've just described, are lawful parts of the tax system. So, when we say, oh, we tax rich people, they get X amount, right? The amount we could get out of them is off the fucking charts. And we could have everything then. We could have the mental health support that we fucking need. We could have the potholes fucking filled. We could have fucking modern electric railways rolling up outside your fucking home. A little bit of a brief walk to the train station, like in London. Not here though. Not in Durham. Fuck me. My closest train station is about 3.5 miles away. It goes to Edinburgh. And that's it. This is the key distinction here. Money legally untaxed because of how the rules are written do not appear as unpaid tax. So they don't go into the tax gap because it's legal. So let's talk now about ways the system can be changed. Number one, for me, capital gains. Capital gains tax needs to move closer to income tax rates. They need to reduce the incentive to transform economic rewards from income into gains, and need to tax some unrealized gains for the extremely wealthy, particularly easily valued shares. We need to end capital gains tax rebasing. What I was talking about before, you buy some shares at £1 million, you die and they're worth 20 million, but the person who gets that 20 million pounds worth of shares doesn't have to pay capital gains on the 19 million that you've made because it resets. No, end that. The heirs should inherit the deceased's original purchase cost, and historic gains would then remain taxable when eventually sold. We need to replace or supplement estate-based inheritance tax with a lifetime inheritance allowance for recipients, so that when people give money while they're still alive to their offspring, then we look at that instead of saying, oh well, we'll fuck over all the people who don't have that much really. But if you've got fuckloads, then you sound. We need to tax very large inheritances according to how much an individual receives over their lifetime, not just in the year that their parent dies. And we need to review unlimited regular gifts out of income for extremely high income households. There's got to be a cap on gifts. Yeah, if you want to give your kid £5 million, that's fine, but you got to pay 90% tax on it. That's fine. And then we've got we need to revalue council tax. Desperately, this needs to be done. Andy Burnham's made some noise about this. I really hope he does it. We need to add higher bands, replace it. It needs to be looked at again. Everything needs to be reclassified, and the tax needs to be more closely related to a current property value. So if we can go on a website and see how much houses are worth whatever Rightmove think they're worth, and we come up to some, we come up to some ratio based on that, it'll be a lot fairer. It'll be a lot fairer, and it mean that people in poorer areas living in substandard households, substandard housing, will pay a lot less tax because the house isn't worth that much. And land value taxation is a target, right, that we can hit because they can't be moved offshore. What can you do? What can you do? Jacqueline Graham lives near Durham. We kicked him out of Liverpool. How very dare you? I am Liverpool. But yeah, we won the match yesterday, by the way. Everton 2-0 against Crystal Palace. Second in the league. Probably not now. There's been more matches played. Well, some have started. But yeah. Andy Burnham was there. Andy Burnham, Everton supporter. He's now our magic, our sacred talisman. I did text one of my friends in the government to say, listen, you need to get Andy to come to all of our home matches now so we win. And the away ones just keep coming. I don't know whether that's going to happen or not, but good if it does. Donations to political parties should also be capped, but then foreign donations should be illegal, especially to expats who moved out of the UK but still can vote, donate because they own a home here, like what Crystal Harbon's done. And what they do is, there's like a 5-year reset, whatever. Like after 5 years, it doesn't count. They buy another property. There's always a way around it. There's always a way around these things, and we really need to look at how we change the system. Around all of these, I bring up 25 ways there to avoid tax. Right? This is how they do it. It's not beyond the fucking wisdom of humanity to go through those and say, right, we're going to close these fucking loopholes. We're going to close them. Yeah. Crystal Palace. Who are they? Exactly. My daughter's a Liverpool supporter. We live in Coventry, by the way. That sounds about right. See, I'm an Everton supporter because I live in... Oh, sorry. I'm from Liverpool. I was going to say because I live in Liverpool. Oh, no. I'm born and bred. QPR, Queen's Park Rangers. Isn't that Wayne's team, Graham? Yeah, QPR. Either that or Fulham FC, is it? I don't know. One of them. Look at property values in Notting Hill now compared with when they were valued. Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah, we need to revalue property tax. Absolutely, we need to do that. Housing, we need to build substantially more council and social housing. We need to reduce reliance on private landlords for basic housing pensions. We need to stop buy-to-let mortgages. They need to be made illegal. That's it. You just can't have them anymore. Fuck off. You shouldn't be having someone else paying your fucking rent, paying your mortgage. No, fuck off. No, you can't do that. That's not a way. That's not a decent way to make money. That's not what a decent person would do. Why are we looking at housing as an asset? And this is how warped our minds have become. Because I remember in the 1980s, right, we used to laugh at aristocrats. We thought they were hilarious and wouldn't take them seriously at all. And that's why we had Maggie Thatcher, who, for all her ills, she wasn't a fucking aristocrat. And then we had John Major, who wasn't an aristocrat. And then we seem to go back into, we'll get the very posh people. We'll get Gideon Osborne to be the Chancellor of the Exchequer. We'll get David Cameron, an old Etonian, to be our Prime Minister. And then a couple of years later, we're like, do you know what we need? We need another old Etonian to be our Prime Minister. We haven't had an old Etonian for the hell 3 years. Or like, can we get another old Etonian to be our leader again, please? The fuck? People complain about Andy Burnham now. I just respond to them and say, listen, what is it? You're missing the Etonian. You're missing being crushed under the fucking heel of the fucking neo-aristocrats. Okay. Anyway, we need to make sure that essentials. We need to increase the supply of council and social housing, so that ownership of scarce housing cannot continually raise rents. We also need to make sure that the essentials public mutual not-for-profit ownership of natural monopolies like energy, like fucking what's it called? That other stuff, water. Like air, fucking housing, and stronger limits on dividends and financial engineering while private ownership remains. We need to look at offshore wealth. We need to require clear beneficial ownership and strengthen automatic exchange of financial information, something that Brexit is kind of fucked for us. We used to be able to exchange financial information with some of the richest fucking countries in the world, and now we can't anymore because of Brexit. Brexit has been very, 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 very good for the wealthy. Very good, exceptionally good for the wealthy. The rest of us, fucked. And in fact, something that I do point out quite a lot is the fact that the very, very wealthy have not been affected by the negative things that Brexit has affected for the rest of us. Like, I can't go and live and work anywhere I want in Europe anymore, but they still can. And their horrible little fucking crotch-born offspring can still go and do that. Nigel Farage's kids have EU passports. Tommy Ten Names has an EU passport. Gobshite. Everton fan here. Go the Toffees. Yay! Welsh Lloyd. Great start to the season. Not as good as Hull, though. Hull beat Manchester United 2-0. And there's a brilliant bit of footage someone had on the phone after the match. All these Man U fans like in tears because they've been beaten by Hull, who have just come up from the lower league. And the voice comes over the tannoy to say that the trains have been cancelled back to Manchester. Oh my God, I shouldn't laugh. It's really mean. It's really mean. I know. I'm sorry. I'm just not a good person. I'm just not going to Hull. Hull, of all places, for a football match. They're getting beaten and they're getting told that your train's been cancelled. Sorry. There's anyone out there who is a Manchester United fan who may or may not have been in Hull yesterday. I know that must have been quite traumatic for you, and I shouldn't laugh. I really shouldn't laugh. I'm a bad person. Bad Graham. Bad, naughty Graham. It was just this guy, he had tears in his eyes because they'd lost. And then it's like, this voice comes over the tannoy like, and by the way, you can never go home. Sorry, anyway, on with the show. Multinationals. Yeah. I was going to say, make trust companies' property ownership traceable to actual human beneficiaries. And we can do that now with the tech we've got. And we have surveillance on everything. You know, they're surveilling us all the time, using Ring doorbells to see who's walking around the society. You know, we're surveilled like nothing, like nobody else ever before in history. But we are the 93% who went to state schools. We're surveilled, but the rich, they got away with it. Multinationals, we need to have a minimum international corporate tax rules. We need to have tougher transfer pricing enforcement. We need country by country reporting, and we need stronger rules on royalty and interest payments to low tax jurisdictions. And we need enforcement. We need more specialist HMRC investigators. HMRC are really interested in going after the little fish. Do you know what I mean? And they're really interested in going after, the government in general is really interested in going after benefits cheats. You know what? Benefits cheats account for fuck all of the tax revenue, what we spend, what the budget is for the government. It's fuck all. We spend more on trying to stop people, on trying to find people who are diddling the system than we actually get out of catching people who are diddling the system. There's a tiny minority. HMRC, we need better paid experts capable of matching private sector tax lawyers and accountants. HMRC says current compliance measures are intended to raise another 10 billion annually by the end of the decade. That's not enough. It should be $1 trillion. It should be fuckloads, Let's get to a system where only the rich pay tax. How'd you like that? How'd you like that? If you don't earn more than £100,000 a year, you pay no tax whatsoever. Would you like that? I'd like that. That's what tax the fucking wealthy. Come on, let's do it. And then we got political finance. We've got to lower, as I said, been said in the chat, we need to lower donation limits to fuck all. We need faster disclosure. We need stronger rules covering personal gifts to politicians. We need tighter checks on the real owners of companies making political donations. And we need greater public funding to reduce parties' dependence on very, 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 very rich individuals. So there you go. Graham, you're a very naughty man. I know, Viper Scott, I'm sorry. Tannoys are tight, says Porty Donkey. Sean is in there. Ryan George there. May the good Lord save us from Hell, Hull, and Halifax. Old English say. Whenever I hear Hull, I was thinking the bit in Blackadder where the Chancellor out who the traitor is. And he says, the great institutions of Oxford, Cambridge, and Hull And Lord Melchett, sorry, General Melchett says, yes, Cambridge Cambridge is a damp or something like that. Hall gets a raw deal. It's not that bad. Yeah. We pay tax when we pay VAT anyway. Yeah, we do. Yeah. And people who are on the lower social economic bracket, especially compared to these fucking millionaires, we spend a lot more as a proportion of our income on stuff that we pay VAT on. You know, we just do. If you're on PAYE, you are effectively taxed on personal turnover. Why not do the same for companies? Much harder to dodge tax. Yeah. Yep. 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 Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Anyone else got some good ideas here? Like I say, it's not it's not enough to just say tax the wealthy. All right. I mean, it's like going to a march with a sign saying "Damn it, capitalism." It's okay, yeah, I get the sentiment, but how do we actually do that? And I'm much more interested in actual practical ways that this government can, things that we can do to make sure that these rich motherfuckers aren't getting away with murder, you know? Or rather, getting away with not paying any bloody tax. So there you go. Right, that was the Sunday sermon this morning. I hope you enjoyed that to some extent. I hope it didn't enrage you too much. But yeah, that is kind of crazy, isn't it? How the rich play the system, all the different ways. Gave a few examples there, but there are many, many more. And while the rich control our political system through donations and the old boys network, nothing's going to change. One of the big things I think would change things in the UK is if we scrapped private schools, capped political donations. We need to look at how assets appreciate in value and say if it's either real money or it's not. Okay? So if someone says, oh, look at all these assets I've got, and you say, okay, we're going to tax you on those. Say, no, but they haven't sold them yet, so you can't tax me, right? If they tried pulling that trick, we can say, well, then you can't take money out from the bank based on that asset because it's not real. And if you do take money out from the bank, we're gonna take a huge chunk of that loan in tax. Cap those loans, or charge a fucking load of tax on them. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Barclays Bank giving us like £1 billion worth of fucking tax. Yeah, we'll have that. Right, at the moment, I'm actually tracking the fraud that's going on in some social care and local GP. It's very diffused. It's not very visible, but it's definitely there. To those who saw Richie's post, she's feeling low. She has a live premiere at 3 p.m. If able, pop into the live chat and send her some love. Oh, that's really nice of you, Elle. I will pin that so people can get that link going and set a little reminder for them to watch that. 3 p.m. today. We love our witchy wisdom from the witchy goth. Listen, I do love the show, but it's better when you release your inner Furian. End Thatcher right to buy policy and go back to council-owned properties. Yep. Couldn't agree more. What else have we got? Before we wrap up, we'll wrap up in a few minutes' time. What else have you got of ways that we can, stop the rich just absolutely taking the motherfucking piss like they do at the moment? I mean, I think that inheritance rules need to be looked at, and then the way that you, if you're giving gifts while your parents are still alive, or your mad rich uncle is still alive, that should be taken into account. In the UK, a lot of these top line visible issues are kind of a red herring from a much more persistent pathological parasite layer that is legally engineered and not to be held to account. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, actually. The persistent pathological parasite layer. No, it is. Furian sounds like something out of Star Trek. It does. Yeah. Furian from the Furian 6 constellation. There's been little change in all history vis-a-vis the situation of wealth accumulation. Obviously, it hasn't reached the mega peak, and perhaps it never can, but constantly stuck in it. Cry. Yeah. I mean, when I often mention the fact that I don't really give that much of a shit about national debt, right? It's not a problem. It's not my problem. It's not a problem. It's fine. If we can pay off the repayments, we need it for capital, that we're, for big infrastructure projects, etc., then fine. As long as it's not being used for the day-to-day. But my issue with it is, as I said earlier, I think it's fucking crazy that they've engineered a system so that when the ultra wealthy give money to the government, they get money back, and we don't. You know, I think that's a breakdown of the social contract. You know? We need to also have more transparency on how our money's being spent. You know, there's a lot of people out there who think that taxation is theft. No, not paying taxation is theft. Not paying taxation is fucking theft, and you should go to jail for it. Quite rightly. You didn't start paying tax from the moment you were born. You didn't pay for the road on which your parents drove you to your private school. You didn't pay for that school to be built. You didn't pay for the sewage network to be put in. You didn't pay for the internet to be created. You didn't pay to allow millions of other people to be able to read so they can use your website or read your book. You didn't pay for any of that shit. Gotta give back. Gotta give back. Force multinationals to set up UK companies. They must conduct UK business through them. Not allowed Tompat, IP fees, etc. You mean scrap the VAT exemption for private schools, not scrap the private schools. That's a little much, isn't it? No, scrap the private schools, Paulie Donkey. No, scrap them. Just get rid of them entirely. Like what they've done in Finland in the 1970s. They didn't just ban them in Finland. They made it against the constitution of Finland to pay for education. And as a consequence, Finland has one of the most socially mobile countries in the world. And it also has the best education system in the world because everyone's in it together. Go to a PTA meeting or a governor's meeting, there'll be someone in that meeting who is a millionaire. I didn't succeed, fucked over Liverpool, which was the end goal anyway. That's what I'm talking about, but yeah, cool. Force multinationals to set up UK companies. They must conduct UK businesses through them. Not allowed Tompat IP fees. Yeah, One Piece, yeah. Yeah, I agree on that one. Absolutely. And if you're earning money in this country, then you must be set up in this country. That's it. And other countries do this. You know? Taxation is a sophisticated method of demanding money with menaces. Lord Veterinary. I hate to say, but PIP mobility scheme is an amazing example of what on the books on the service looks so nice, but it does enable one of the key GDP revenue streams of car-related things. Okay, I don't really understand that, but yeah, Polly Donkey. When I say I want to shut down I'll burn them all down, private schools. But I let the kids out first. I'm not a complete monster. But yes, and a pound here, pay a pound here. Yeah, yep. If you're going to be a multinational company and you set up in the UK, you can't hide your profits overseas. That's it. You've got to pay money on your profits in this country. Scrap two-tier education, abolish private schools in Oxbridge, reform the education system. I don't think we have to scrap Oxbridge. I think that'd be a bad idea because it does bring a lot of money into the country. But yeah, two-tier education's got to stop when it comes to private schools. At the moment, a huge number of kids who get into Oxford and Cambridge and Durham here went to private school. It's not fair. If it was opened up more to state school kids, then yeah, maybe we would have a different setup. But yeah, I wouldn't go as far as taking out the universities because they provide. It's not just a leg up for the people who go there. It is these are world-class universities that people come from all over the world to come and study in this country because of these institutions, and long may that continue to be the case. I have no problem with people spending loads of money to come over here and live here for a few years with the money they've accumulated from some other country that they grew up in. Like manufacturing insurance, especially that's 1/3 now, by the way, could be funded by the same self-same government. Look it up. A bit scary how the governments actually do things at such a much. Yeah, I guess so. A lot of this needs to be looked at. Jacqueline says, especially get rid of schools like Eton and Harrow, etc. No, get rid of all private schools. We don't need them. They shouldn't exist. It's ridiculous. They're charities for billionaires. For the crotch spawn of billionaires. What the fuck? These things are charities and they only spend 1%. One in every 100 children who go to a private school in this country get a full bursary. One in every 100. That means that the parents are earning probably, average wage, average income. £37,000 a year, whatever it is, right? The rest of them, they're either earning shitloads more than that, and they just get a bit of a bursary towards the cost because their parents have got creative accounting to say we didn't earn that much money, really. Actually, we need a bit of a top up, so we're paying that. We're paying that out of our pockets to already wealthy people to help their child go to a posh private school, and then the school gets a tax rebate on that, so we're not getting the gains that we should be making on that. And these places have, archery fucking places. They have squash courts, and they have Ampleforth has its own fucking golf course. It has its own golf course, mate. Like, seriously, what the fuck are we doing here? We're subsidising that. We're subsidising the ski equipment and the musical instruments for the children of the ultra wealthy. Nah, fuck that shit. And in conclusion, I say, fuck that shit. Right, I'm going to get out of here. And we're going to chill for more super chats. Listen, I might do a show tonight. I'd like to do a show tonight at 8 o'clock with our dear friend Mike Dix. We'll have to see how he's feeling and if he's up to it. But if you would be so kind to give us a like before you go. And hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. If you're watching this, I'll catch up and hit the bell notification icon. And I'll let you know about half an hour before if we're going to go live. I'm not doing a show tomorrow. There's going to be no Morning Brew tomorrow because I'll be traveling to Liverpool. And I probably won't be doing a show in the evening either. So Monday I'm having off for personal reasons. So if you if you want a bit of Graham goodness, you're going to have to watch one of the old videos one of the thousands and thousands of other videos that I've made in the past on this channel. Fucking hell, it's not like I don't put the fucking hard yakka in. Hey, imagine being a musician and just writing a song in a day and then just playing that song for the rest of your life. God, that'd be so much easier. Anyway, thanks, Graham. Oh, thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you for coming on. And the heart, that is very kind of you. And I make Oxford and Cambridge normal universities, says James. Yeah, I mean, they could be. There's no reason why they're not even particularly different from other universities. I know they use a collegiate system. They use that in Durham here as well. I don't really care about that. I care about the fact that the vast majority of kids who go there are posh kids who are rich. I want them open to all. Open to all. Okay, take it easy, says Sarah. Absolutely. Let's do it. I'm easy. Until we meet again, thanks for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome.